It's a bitter irony that a clinical crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, hit the clinical workforce and clinical education perhaps the hardest. Writing on March 31st for the JAMA Network blog, Dr. Suzanne Rose said, quote, "One challenge is in providing authentic patient experiences for medical students as a key component of medical education under these circumstances. The profound effects of coronavirus 19 may forever change how future physicians are educated." Unquote. Teaching science, teaching clinical skills thrives on hands-on learning, interpersonal experiences, patient-student contacts. Yet when we moved completely online, we were thrown into our living rooms and on Zoom, where those interpersonal contacts became nearly impossible. Joining me today is an esteemed panel including Richard Swartzstein from the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center associated with Harvard University, Dr. Chaya Gopalan from Southern Illinois University, Catherine Snelling from the University of Adelaide in Adelaide, Australia, Dr. Sandeep Ansal from University of North Texas Health Center School of Medicine, Dr. Jose Felix Castro from Mananac University in Mexico City, Mexico. Dr. Swartzstein, let's start with you. How was the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent school closings that you experienced uniquely challenging for the clinical instruction and education that you provide to your students?
I would separate out pre-clerkship education from the clinical. The pre-clerkship went virtual, as probably for most people the same thing happened. And while we conveyed most of what we wanted to do using online technology, including small group work, interactive things, the personal connections that we have between faculty and students was not as strong as obviously we would have had in person. And for a course that was interrupted in the middle, and it was actually my course, because we already knew the students, it actually worked pretty well. The course that followed ours, where they had not had a chance to work together in a classroom setting, struggled quite a bit because of a lack of trust in some ways between faculty and students. That safe environment we're always trying to create to allow a really meaningful exchange among the students and with the faculty. Clinically, our students were sent home initially for their own safety, and they're now coming back again. I think the clinical teaching, while we tried to get students involved in some supportive roles and so forth that were useful, what was really remarkable to me is how we had an opportunity to change the learning environment, particularly around the concept of lifelong learning and self-directed learning, which is a huge issue these days. And because this was new to everyone, faculty, residents, and students, the ability for us as faculty to truly model the fact that things were happening we couldn't fully explain. This is how we will begin to think about it. This is how we read the literature breaking by the minute, some of which was not very good, and some of which was very compelling. We had a chance to really raise the bar in some ways on some aspects of clinical education that was really a unique opportunity and one that we tried to take advantage of.
How about others? How did you find your specific discipline challenged by the pandemic?
Well, I'll just add that I'm from a dental school, and I'm not sure whether there's anyone else on the panel that is from a dental school, but if you were looking at some of the statistics about the most dangerous occupations associated with COVID, 3 out of the top 5 had dental in front of them. So we were very much in the at the pointy end of things virtually straight away. And we've got I suppose, an upside down situation here. We were 3 weeks into our first semester when we shut down. So what was mentioned about the students not having worked together, lacking that kind of interpersonal relationships and trust was really amplified, particularly for our first year, our freshman students who barely knew each other's names. So we are about to go back to some limited face-to-face teaching in what is going to be our second semester, but we're going to be online for everything theoretically based for the rest of this year, because we kind of go in calendar years with our our academic year.
Wow, amazing.
So yes, it's been a. Someone said to me, "You should never waste a good crisis," and that's what we're trying to do with our teaching. And there's been some, I'm sure, like you've all found, some absolutely amazing outcomes, which we're not going to change now, which is kind of ironic, but maybe that's how often things change through necessity rather than people thinking it's just a good idea.
Absolutely. Dr. Gobelin?
Yes, I teach a physiology course for certified nurse anesthesia students. It has been always taught in the flip style, where students do their work first and then meet in class for Q&A and assessments, individual or group. All of that was moved to an online format, and more technology than what was already being used. I'm using the breakout room for group work and Poll Everywhere for individual quizzes. Anatomatch table is now virtually displayed, where we look at the different systems. It's not the same as taking them to the lab and allow them to play with the table, but it's neat that we can still do everything that we possibly could have done given the situation. So it has been a nice transformation, and students, a few of them took some time to adjust, but majority of them were ready to move on. Technology wasn't an issue. So yeah, it's a nice adjustment.
Doctors Bansal and Castro, what about both of you?
Well, we were working here in Mexico in one new way, because we were trying to put the student in front of clinical cases. We asked our almost 400 clinical teacher or hospital teacher to give us some clinical cases, very accurate with the documents, with the articles, and then the students were working with those cases. Then we give them a little face-to-face, maybe on Zoom or in Teams, work together with their teachers. That's why we do it first in a flip mode. Clinical cases with all the a very long clinical a very long case with a review on some stuff like that, and then the work with the teacher in a face to face, in a time face to face. I think they work. We had two educational platforms from some editorials like McGraw-Hill or Panamericana, Editorial Panamericana from Spain. And we work in that way, in a very self-assessment student way, and then with a teacher, with a clinical teacher.
Dr. Bansal.
Hi. So just to correct a little bit, I'm from TCU and UNTHC School of Medicine. TCU stands for Texas Christian University.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. University of North Texas. This is in Fort Worth. So one beautiful thing is we are a very new school with the innovative medical curriculum. We have no lectures. It is purely flipped classroom based curriculum. Students learn their material before coming to class to apply what they have learned. So our all in classroom sessions are purely application based sessions. So this actually made it a little easier for us because we were already kind of using something that came handy in this COVID-19 situation. I call it like using synchronous and asynchronous learning, because asynchronous is occurring when students are preparing themselves, they are gathering knowledge, they are learning in their own space, at their own pace. And then when they come to class, then it is synchronous to engage into our application sessions. So what we did, we are now using different ways. Mostly we are trying to duplicate what we did in class in real time to present it online. We are using TBL formats or case-based learning format, or sometimes a hybrid, to try to engage students and make these sessions meaningful. Now, one challenge that has been shared by other universities also, I am member of marketing committee of TBLC, team-based learning collaboration. So we were talking the other day, people from Australia, people from Northern America, and elsewhere, they all have this challenge of engaging students online. Obviously, when you are in real time, you can go and show cues and motivate students physically with eyes, and you can give clues. But now being online, it is really a little challenging. But as we move forward in our discussion, I think we have to think about little more about, do we really want to just duplicate what we were doing before COVID, now trying to achieve the same thing the same way online? Without talking much, I think I will just leave at this point to come back to this as we discuss.
I think that's a great point. That's certainly something I want to circle back to, is how do we change our modality and our delivery, learning what we've learned. But you raise another really interesting point that I'd like to pick up on. Dr. Gopalan, I know you've been flipping for a very long time. Dr. Castro, you've begun experimenting with best practices of flipped learning. And Dr. Schwartzstein, I had the privilege and honor and pleasure of sitting in on a day of your instruction there at Harvard Medical School, where you applied your novel case-based peer instruction model that's flipped. So to the group, how had your previous experience with flipped learning changed your transition to the online modality in the pandemic? How did it grease those wheels? What did you learn by being a flipped instructor first that altered your adaptation to the pandemic?